Starting off our list, in our number 10 spot we have Gangkhar Puensum. This mountain has a long history of disputes on where exactly it is located, but for today's video we'll call it on the border of Bhutan and China, which I believe is what has been settled on by researchers. This mountain is the largest mountain that has been unclimbed by humans and stands at a height of 7,570 meters or 24,836 feet. Studies and measurements of this mountain started almost 100 years ago in 1922, but it wasn't until much more recently that we began to acquire actually accurate details about it. The name of the mountain means White Peak of the Three Spiritual Brothers, which becomes an important part of why this mountain remains unclimbed. In 1983, the mountain became open for mountaineering, but between 1985 and 1986, there were 4 separate expeditions that tried to summit it and failed. Because of what we spoke about before and how there were disputes on the location and inaccurate information, the first group who tried to summit it couldn't even find the mountain at all. In 1994, the climbing of mountains in Bhutan higher than 6,000 meters became prohibited due to spiritual beliefs, and in 2003 mountaineering became prohibited entirely. This is why the mountain remains unsummited, and while I'm sure it would be an amazing expedition for climbers, I think the idea of it remaining untouched is actually quite nice. And who knows what is going on up there in terms of ecology due to it being left alone. In our number 9 spot today we have the Star Mountains. This massive mountain range is located in Papua New Guinea, and although we of course know about it, much of the area remains completely untouched by humans. This area is thought to be one of the wettest places on the earth as it sees more than 10,000 millimeters of rain every year. At that point you wonder why they're still measuring in millimeters, but hey, I'm not a weatherman. Due to the rain and just how torrential the downpour is, there isn't a spot in the entire range that can house a weather station. There was an attempt made to explore the range in 1959 by a man named Jan Sneap who wanted to try and map out the area, and it was slightly successful, but not without struggle. During the expedition they had 2 helicopters, but due to the altitudes one of them ended up crashing and they were forced to rely on their own manpower from then on. While this of course would suggest that humans have of course at some point visited the mountain range, as I previously mentioned, there are most definitely areas that remain unvisited by humans, and it's probably for the best if we leave it that way. In our number 8 spot today we have the Namib Desert. This desert stretches more than 1,200 miles and is located along the Atlantic coast of Angola, Namibia, and South Africa. This desert is recognized as one of the driest places in the entire world, so exactly the opposite of the Star Mountains we just discussed. Compared to that 10,000 millimeters of rain from before, this desert is said to only receive 2 millimeters of water per year, which seems like a much more reasonable time to measure in millimeters. It also means that there's certainly not a lot of living species in this area, but anything that does live in this desert needs to be able to survive on the smallest amount of water possible, so humans definitely aren't top of the list for that. Not only is this thought to be one of the oldest deserts in the world, but it is also thought to be the home to more endemic species than any other desert in the world. This means species that are found in that specific region and nowhere else on Earth. There are less barren and dry areas of the desert that are currently inhabited by smaller settlements and some indigenous groups, but most of the area is totally unlivable. In our number 7 spot today we have the center of the Earth. This should be one that's fairly straightforward, but if you're sitting there wondering why we've never been to the core of the Earth, I'm here to let you know. Basically, it's way too hot. But let's break it down even further than that. Basically, if you were trying to dig a hole to the core of the Earth, you'd start with the crust of the Earth, which is the thinnest of the 3 main layers, but humans haven't even gone through this entire layer yet, even in the deepest holes on Earth. Around 4,000 meters down you'll pass the deepest mine on Earth, but that mine uses ice to keep its workers cool since it's about 60 degrees Celsius down there. At 12,260 meters you'll get to the point of the deepest hole on Earth, the Kola Super Deep Borehole, and you'll be sitting in 180 degrees Celsius, but it won't be until you get to 40,000 meters that you'll get into the second main layer. The second layer is called the mantle and is responsible for 84% of the planet's volume. Here you'll be sitting at 1,000 degrees Celsius, which is about the temperature it feels on a humid day in Toronto, and you'll be drilling through rock. Just to cut to the chase a little bit, because we could sit here all day talking about the things you'll encounter on the journey, such as diamonds, by 3 million meters down you'll reach the third layer, which is the outer core. This will see temperatures that are similar to the surface of the sun. By 5 million meters you'll reach the core, and if you can just dig another 1.5 million meters, at 6.4 million you'll reach the center of the core of the Earth. There'd be no gravity here, and you'd need a super heat and super pressure proof submarine that can cut through some of the hardest materials and moves like a rocket in space in order to take on this journey. So once that's invented, we'll get right on that trip. In our number 6 spot today we have the Sakha Republic. Russia is the largest country in the world, but there's an area in it which is the 8th largest territory in the world, and it remains mostly untouched by humans. This area is so large it's only slightly smaller than India. The majority of this territory is above the Arctic Circle, making it basically like a desert except the freezing cold kind. There is so little of a population in this area that if all the residents were spread out, there would be more than a square mile in between each resident. But here's the thing. You can't really live in most of this region. I mean, you can, but not without extreme difficulty. The ground is covered by permafrost, which of course has a huge impact on the ecology of the region. There is a mountain range that is located within this region, and that range is known as the coldest area in the northern hemisphere, so that says a lot. Because of the extreme weather, much of this region has gone unexplored and untouched by man, and I honestly can completely understand why. In our number 5 spot today we have Mariana Trench. About 71% of the Earth is covered in water, and yet the oceans are the places we know the least about, which is kind of terrifying. Mariana Trench is located in the western part of the Pacific Ocean, just east of the Philippines, and is the deepest part of our planet's oceans. The trench is in the shape of a crescent and is about 2,550 kilometers long and 69 kilometers wide. Its exact depth is unknown, but what we do know is that if we took Mount Everest and put it in the trench, its summit would still be underwater by more than 2 kilometers. So it's safe to say it's pretty deep. The pressure that deep in the ocean is far too great for humans to withstand, the temperature is just above freezing, and it is incredibly dark down there, which makes it a perfect recipe of a place that we should stay the heck away from. There has been a very small number of divers who explored what is called the Challenger Deep, which is the deepest known spot of the trench, but of course not without super heavy duty equipment, and no one has been able to stay there for an extended amount of time. So of course, like I just mentioned, there have been some people who have head down to some deep, dark parts of the trench, but most of it remains a mystery to all of us, and that includes what exactly lives down there. In our number 4 spot today we have the Kamchatka Peninsula. Russia has made it on this list again, but this one is the exact opposite of the last one we talked about. From a frozen desert, we are now talking about a volcano belt. This belt contains 160 different volcanoes, 29 of which are still active today. One active volcano is enough for me to stay away from, so 29 certainly sounds like a place everyone should stay away from. There have been a few people who have studied the region over the years, but certainly not many. Other than the high amounts of volcanic activity, which of course are an extreme danger to anyone even close to the area, because of thousands upon thousands of years of forming volcanic rock, the area only gets more difficult to explore as time goes on. This is what has led to this area being one of the least explored places we have on our beautiful Earth. But seriously, looking at pictures of how stunning this place looks makes me want to ignore everything I just said and travel there to see it in real life with my very own eyes. In our number 3 spot today we have Greenland. Okay, bear with me on this one because you're probably sitting there thinking I'm crazy for putting Greenland on this list, but I promise I'm not. Well, I think I'm not, and I'll let you be the judge. Of course I know Greenland is an inhabited country, and although Vikings landed there all the way back in 1000 CE, there are so many parts of the farthest northern regions that we simply just don't know much about. Like even as recently as 1999, there were only 6 newly discovered untouched islands just off the coast, and there is so much of the inland part of the country that remains uninhabited. Greenland is the largest island on Earth at an amazing 8 million square miles, but 80% of that is covered in ice, which makes it extremely difficult to traverse. Like in some parts, the ice is as thick as 3,200 meters, and it's been that way for about 400,000 to 800,000 years. There's a super low population on Greenland, considering the harsh conditions just don't really make it a super ideal place to live, travel, or explore. In our number 2 spot today we have Vale do Javari. This place is part of the Amazon rainforest in Brazil and is fully one of the most unexplored places in the entire world. Not only is it the home to some extremely deadly creatures, it also sees extremely heavy rainfall which causes heavy flooding and extreme currents in the river, which make it not only uninhabitable but also difficult and dangerous to explore. Despite what I just mentioned, however, it is believed that one of our world's uncontacted tribes actually lives here. These people are able to live in this area and thrive without almost all of the things we use in our daily lives, and they remain uncontacted for a few reasons, but the main one being because we don't want to spread our diseases to them, which would likely wipe out their entire population, because that would be horrible and absolutely devastating, which we all know about very well. Because of this tribe of people and us not wanting to ruin their home, they're actually federally protected, and so is their land. There have been instances of no contact laws being broken by people like drug traffickers, but the government continues to protect these people and the land, and it will remain unexplored except by those who live there. It would be amazing to hear their stories, but I'm glad that we are doing what we can to protect them, because if they want to contact us, they know where we are. In our number 1 spot today we have the Singi National Park. The Singi National Park is located on the western edge of Madagascar, but today I want to talk about the 2 large geographical features in the park, which are Big Singi and Little Singi. Singi can be translated into English as roughly where one cannot walk barefoot, and when you see it, you'll realize this name makes a lot of sense. These rock formations are plateaus that have had deep ruts cut into them by groundwater, which has left them totally unable to be walked on or through. This whole area is incredibly fascinating and is the home to many endemic species because of its unusual geomorphology. Many of these species are found only within extremely small areas within the Singis because the summit, slope, and base of one limestone needle will all form completely different ecosystems, which is absolutely unbelievable. The Singis are a perfect example of what happens when humans leave a place alone and let nature and the earth just exist. It would be an amazing place to go and explore, but because of the nature of the limestone needles, we just can't, and that truly is probably for the best.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Forest Lake, Russia. This one is very strange, okay? Located somewhere within a huge forest in Russia is this beautiful yet mysterious lake. Mysterious because the exact location remains unknown. Someone found it while doing aerial photography. They were up in the sky flying over this forest when they found this huge lake. Another reason why it's mysterious is because no one really knows how the lake was actually created. Like, it's smack in the middle of a dense forest. Over the years, a number of people have attempted to find this lake, but no one has successfully managed to. As a result, there's a number of websites out there dedicated to finding the lake. And a number of posts have been made from people asking if anyone knows anything about it. Will we ever find this mysterious lake? Who knows? Who knows? In our 9th spot, we have Yucatan cenote. But before I go any further, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button because it really helps us out. Located in southern Mexico, this place has tons of these natural pit type things called cenotes. Basically, it's a massive hole that forms after rocks underneath the ground break, and then it leaves a gap. This then exposes the groundwater that's underneath them. When the rock breaks down even more, water fills the hole, making it like a natural swimming pool. Now, they are quite beautiful, but they're also quite dangerous. Some of them you're allowed to swim in, but a bunch of them are off limits. Not only that, but some of them are hard to even get into, so people don't even bother. I mean, you'd have to be able to find a natural entrance, and then, like I said, it's still hard to enter. As a result, a number of these holes have never been touched, swam in, or explored. Coming in at number 8, we have Masherbrum, Pakistan. The Pakistan mountain Masherbrum is said to be the world's hardest alpine to climb. In fact, this mountain is said to be way harder to climb than Mount Everest. Now, there was a part that was climbed in 1960, but the north side of the mountain has not been successfully topped yet. This route is extremely dangerous and difficult. So over 75 years of attempts, only 15 people have successfully summited the mountain. Again, no one on the northeast face before. People have tried, but they don't get very far. Since no one has done it before, there's not a lot of info out there on the layout of it. and like I said before, it's very, very difficult to climb. In our 7th spot, we have Mount Sipple, Antarctica. Mount Sipple is a 10,203 foot tall, potentially active volcano located in the Antarctic. It was named after Paul A. Sipple, who was a navigator and the discoverer of this shield volcano. And it's never been climbed. As a result, it is the highest point on the Antarctic continent that has not been climbed. This is due to a number of reasons. 1. Not a lot of people know about this volcano because it's in such a remote location, and 2. Not much is known about the mountain. That's why I said potentially active volcano. I mean, people think it is an active volcano, but we still don't really know since people haven't really explored it. In our 6th spot, we have the Impossible Tepui. These gigantic towers of rock are often named the Impossible Tepui because they are incredibly difficult to climb. These are located all across Venezuela and are just super tall with sharp, jagged edges. Not only are most of them unexplored from the outside, but most of them are also unexplored from the inside as well. Hundreds of these rock towers are composed of caves and paths on the inside. According to scientists, only a fraction of those have been explored. The most we have done is flown drones over them to check them out from different angles, but physically no human has been to a majority of them. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Twilight Zone reefs. Located in the Chagos Islands, these reefs are given their name due to the fact that they are part of the Twilight Zone in the ocean. But exploration of this area is limited because of how remote the islands are. On top of that, just recently they implemented a new rule where divers can only go down 25 meters. After that, it's restricted. So there's still so much to learn about this reef, and there's many more areas around there that haven't even been explored. In fact, in general, very few of the world's coral reefs have been studied deeper than 4 meters, so that's kinda interesting. Coming in at number 4, we have the deserts. Due to the extreme weather conditions, deserts are one of the world's least explored areas. I mean, it's really hard to survive out there for a long period of time. It's inhabitable. The days are extremely hot, nights extremely cold, and it gets very little rainfall. So it's hard to grow plants out there. So who really wants to be out there exploring? Anyways, we're gonna talk about the Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert covers over 200 million square miles. Humans clearly haven't covered every inch of it. There are entire regions that have yet to be explored. Coming in at number 3, we have the Amazon rainforest. The Amazon rainforest holds half of the total rainforest on Earth. It's pretty insane. This thing is massive. It covers a total area of 2.5 million square miles, and it's home to beautiful animals and wildlife. But have it being that it's so big, there's tons of areas in the Amazon where humans have never been to. Maybe these areas contain new insects and species that are just waiting to be discovered. We truly don't know. It would take us years to cover all the grounds there. In fact, it is considered one of the least explored places on Earth. Isn't that just fascinating? Well, I mean, I think it is. One of the reasons this is the case is because not only is the forest filled with deadly animals, like, jaguars and anacondas and Brazilian wandering spiders, but also explorers would have a tough time getting access to enough food and clean drinking water. And not only that, the Amazon gets rain all year round, which can cause heavy flooding, which then can cause the water levels to rise and flood, and it makes transportation through the area way too dangerous and challenging. In our 2nd spot, we have Antarctica. Antarctica is considered the coldest place on Earth's surface. It's also the driest, coldest, and windiest continent on Earth. How fun. Its harsh climate alone makes it one of the least explored places on Earth. Not only that, but this place is massive. So no wonder humans haven't been able to get to every region there. In fact, Antarctica is considered one of the last unexplored places on Earth, and one of Earth's last frontiers. Let me explain why. There is a world of buried lakes and rivers under Antarctica. Scientists are desperate to explore it, but it's impossible to, just lift up the giant ice sheets and see what's up underneath there. So nobody really knows what it looks like under there, or even what things are living down there. This discovery is now considered among the most important geographical discoveries of the second half of the 20th century. And In our number one spot, we have the ocean. I mean, come on, this one is kind of obvious, but it's also very scary. It's said that 99% of the sea floor has yet to be discovered. Yeah, that means we have only explored 1%. Are you kidding me? Maybe that's where the aliens and mermaids are hiding, all the way down there. I mean, it took us a number of years before we could even reach the Challenger Deep, which is the deepest point in the ocean. It's gonna take us hundreds of more years before we can even explore half of the ocean. Now, this is due to a number of reasons. Number one, light can't reach all the way down to the bottom of the ocean. After 200 meters, the light begins to decline, so it would be super hard to see. Not only that, but the deeper you go, the worse the conditions get. I mean, the pressure down there is way too much for the human body to handle. Also, the temperature drops significantly the deeper you go down. So yeah, it's not the best conditions for exploration. In fact, it's easier to send a person to space than it is to send them down to the bottom of the ocean. That's insane.
Starting off this countdown, we have the unexplored caves. There are so many caves on this earth that we have not explored or found. First off, many of the caves we haven't found are hidden. Like maybe they don't even have an entrance to them. And if they do, how could we find it? Or if we do find a cave, most of the time there isn't just easy access to it. So it's hard to get inside and explore. In fact, back in 2018, a gigantic unexplored cave was found in Canada. It was said that this was the first time this cave has been seen by human eyes. Geoscientist Catherine Hickson said, and I quote, "It is huge, it is enormous. When you first see it, you just gasp because it's just this huge hole in the ground." This cave was first found in April of 2018 when a helicopter was flying over to Count Caribou. I swear, that's like the most Canadian thing I've ever heard. And then they spotted this mystery cave, which again, is massive. Now, some people have gone inside and explored it, but there's still so many different sections of the cave that no human has ever been to. In our ninth spot today, we have Pitcairn Island. This island is said to be one of the most unexplored islands out there. It is located in the Pacific Ocean and is part of the British Overseas Territory. In fact, no helicopter or plane has ever landed there. The only way to get there is by a 32-hour yacht ride. Yikes, that's just called seasickness. With that being said, this island does have some inhabitants. There are around 50 people living there, and there could be less by now. There's only a small amount of children. It's considered one of the least populated territories in the world. The British government has actually been trying to convince more and more people to move there. But I could see why some people would be hesitant, as, you know, you're thousands of miles away from civilization. I mean, if you need medical attention, you need to travel all the way to New Zealand. So if it's an emergency, you're kind of screwed. On top of that, there are also no jobs on the island. There's like one general store where you have to order your food supply 3 months in advance. It's crazy. Now, you might be thinking, Lindsay, why is this island on this list if you just said people live there? Well, there's plenty of places on the island that they leave alone and haven't explored yet. They live in a small village and hardly travel to the outskirts. In fact, the island is largely unmapped. In our 8th spot today, we have Mount Roraima. This mountain sits on the border of Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana. In fact, it is the highest mountain of the Pacaraima chain in South America. Now, this mountain is deemed somewhat sacred. This is due to the belief that the mountain once hosted a tree that produced all the fruits and vegetables in the world. This belief is what limits people's access to it today. Now, in 1884, it was explored using one trail, which you can still access to this day, but you need to obtain permission, and it's very quite difficult to get. Aside from that trail, the rest is uncharted, and no human has seen what other beauty lies on this mountain. On top of that, the mountain is filled with steep slopes and treacherous conditions, so it's not the easiest place to explore. Coming in at number 7, we have Palmerston Island. Palmerston Island is another very isolated island with only a handful of people living there. There's a total of 62 residents, and they're all from the same bloodline. This island is so isolated that there are no shops, banks, or markets. In order to get supplies, a ship will bring deliveries. However, only a couple of times per year. Now, this island doesn't have a proper water filtration system. Instead, they live off drinking rainwater that they collect. For food, they live off of fish and coconuts, which can be found on the island. On top of it all, they only have 2 toilets, which are located on the main street. I mean, I can't imagine only having 2 toilets for 62 people. It's insane. Similar to Pitcairn Island, this island is largely unmapped. There are areas on it that humans have yet to see. Moving on to number 6, we have Surtsey Island. Surtsey Island is a volcanic island. It formed after a number of volcanic eruptions between 1963 to 1967. As a result, it is said to be one of the newest islands on the planet. However, it is off limits to the public. Only a select few are allowed on it, and those are researchers. These researchers are highly trained. Now, why is this island off limits? Well, they don't want humans interfering with the ecological state of the island. They want to keep it as natural as possible, which also restricts the areas that the researchers can go to on the island. In fact, all researchers must get government approval before they go there. And once they are on there, they have to follow strict protocol to avoid contaminating the area with seeds or chemicals. The only time they do go there is to do research, and then that's it. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Devon Island. Devon Island is located off of Canada and is said to be a polar desert. That's the name that NASA gave it. It's also been named Mars on Earth. If you see photos, then you'll understand why. So this island is the largest uninhabited island in the world. Why is that? Well, mainly because of extreme temperature and weather conditions. It's got a harsh climate, very similar to the conditions on Mars. So basically, the ground is frozen for almost the full year. One part of the island is permanently covered by an ice cap that is 500 to 700 meters. In the summer, the temperature is about 8 degrees Celsius, so not warm at all. Whereas year-round, it's typically like negative 16 degrees Celsius. In other words, it's freezing cold. It's also devoid of any signs of life, so people don't really want to go there. The only people that have gone are some researchers for NASA. They use this place to test out space equipment and space suits. But besides that, this island is largely unexplored. In our 4th spot, we have Salween River. This river is considered one of Southeast Asia's longest rivers. It extends into China, Burma, and Thailand. Now, it's on this list because it's believed to have undiscovered parts in it. I mean, a river that long, come on, there has to be something there. Hopefully buried treasure or something, that'd be cool. But here's the thing, this river supports the livelihoods of over 10 million people. As a result, it is now highly polluted. In fact, it is among the 10 most polluted rivers in the world, which means researchers don't really want to go in and explore it that much. Also, only the last 90 kilometers of the river are navigable, which means it's hard for those trying to explore it. Moving on to number 3, we have Lake Vostok. Located in Antarctica, this lake is considered the world's largest subglacial lake. It is located under a 3.7K thick glacier and is said to be over 35 million years old. What's interesting is that this lake wasn't found until the early 60s. A Russian pilot was flying over when he spotted it. Then remote sensing techniques were used to map the area under the ice. But they say that it wasn't truly discovered until 1996, when they used ice-penetrating radar and artificial seismic waves. Now, rumor has it that the lake contains ancient bacteria and microorganisms. These species would be extremely rare because the lake was so isolated for years. Not only that, but these species have a set of unique genes, since they can live in the extreme cold, dark, and high pressure. Coming in at number 2, we have Northern Patagonia. Located in Chile, Northern Patagonia, this is said to be one of Chile's wildest landscapes. And I agree with that. On one end, you got ice fields. These ice fields are said to be one of the largest ice fields on Earth. The climate there is very harsh and it's difficult to explore. Then you have the complete opposite. They have rainforests with hot springs. This landscape makes it very difficult to explore. In fact, the rainforests and glaciers are so remote that they are virtually impossible to chart. In fact, many say that that's a difficult and dangerous task to do. As a result, most of this place has gone unmapped and unexplored. And in our number 1 spot, we have Sandy Island. Located in the South Pacific, this island no longer exists. Back in the late 19th century, Sandy Island was noted on a number of maps and nautical charts. But when people went to go check out this island, they found nothing. So this island is in the South Pacific. It was located between Australia and New Caledonia, but it's no longer there. Now this could be for a number of reasons. Number 1, human error. Maybe they placed it wrong on the map and then over the years they just kept drawing it wrong and you get it. Or the island was there but got flooded over. Who knows? It's pretty crazy. I guess we'll never get to explore this mystery island.